The Elements of Friendship, Book 1, Harmony, by Amos Vigeland. Chapter 14, The Fabled Sonic Rainboom. Twilight took in a deep breath through her nostrils. The air of the labyrinth was heavy with the scent of minotaurs, as the prior city-states had been, but there was a very familiar tint to the air that told her, yes, there were ponies living not too far. Yes, they were most certainly home. Equestria, the Minotaur, drew himself up from his knuckles briefly, closing his eyes briefly as his own nostrils flared.
"It is a long time since I visited a labyrinth," he said lowly. "The Equestrian air is nice. It is cooler than usual right now. Much cooler. It is the Falti's Celine doing, right?"
I'm afraid so, sir. If we need to use our elements of harmony to dispose of her as quickly as possible, said Twilight Sparkle. What's it? Asked Rainbow Dash. It's what Minotaurs call Nightmare Moon, Rainbow Dash, Twilight replied shortly. Not every culture refers to the same pony by the same name. But a Nightmare Moon by any other name would smell as rotten, Rarity waxed poetic. Moon Dancer offered Rarity a dark look. Less said, Rarity Ben. Equestria led the band of 8 further down a particular winding pathway of labyrinth, with its walls of giant hedges and bushes, passing by still more minotaurs of many professions and ways of life. These minotaurs of Equestria had brighter and more colorful coats than the minotaurs who hailed from the edge of Ponyville, though the bulls were still unmistakably burly. The cows leaned, muscled, and the calves soft and adorable. Torches were alit to allow for the city-state to continue to function, and the clothes producers passed out cloaks free of charge to Equestria and the 8 passing by him. They were woolen and dyed in dark colors, for unseen travels on the eternally nighttime roads of Equestria under Nightmare Moon. Twilight and Rarity drew their own cloaks tight around each other, Twilight using her magic to help Spike get his on. Applejack and Pinky simply drew their respective cloaks onto their own backs, their shadow cells leaving odd bumps on their sides. Rainbow Dash struggled to fit her wings through special slits in the sides of her cloak, with Fluttershy helping out her ruffled girlfriend. Moon Dancer fastened her cloak over her chest, and the hem of her cloak resting around the ankles of her hind legs. Are we soon to reach the gates of Labyrinth, Equestria? Moon Dancer asked. The large, dark Minotaur looked down at the pink-maned unicorn.
"Are you and your party not certain you would like to rest and keep warm before you depart from your home kingdom?"
"Afraid not, mister," Applejack said politely, "'cause I think we all reckon that this whole everlasting night thing on Nightmare Moon has gone just on about long enough." "But we will take our time to visit your lovely city-states in the future," Rarity said smilingly. Equestria smiled as they rounded a corner, coming to a long path down the hall of hedges leading to a small patch of trees completely blocking the end of the path.
"I am thinking you would like city-state called Narcissa. It is the city-state made entirely out of mirrors, so that one sees oneself in every direction."
"Oh, Rarity would like that, all right," Rainbow Dash snarked with a cocky grin. Rarity lowered her eyebrows at her. Twilight chuckled loudly and nervously, attempting to alleviate the flaring tension. "Well then, how about we say thank you, Mr. Equestria, and then walk off hoof to hoof with smiles on all our muscles." "Woohoo!" Pinky cheered, almost bouncing over one of the walls of Labyrinth. "That's the spirit, Twilight!"
"Do not be jumping too high," Equestria said. "Minotaur magic lets things leave, but coming back will be unpleasant."
"Don't worry about it, Noon," Applejack cut in. "Apparently, Pinkie Pie here can fly." Equestria raised a black eyebrow at the pink earth pony.
"But she is not having wings."
"Trust me, she can fly," Applejack pressed, and Equestria decided not to press the issue any further. The barrier trees drew closer. "So, I was thinking," Rainbow Dash interjected, "how are we going to let every pony in Equestria know that we know how to get the elements working? Shouldn't we send out some sort of signal or something?" "If we send out a signal," Twilight replied, We really should wait until we have all 6 elements ready. Too soon, and we might end up getting swarmed before we have a ready counter to Nightmare Moon. Maybe, but I still think we should come up with something before then. Got any ideas then, Rainbow? Applejack asked. Oh, I got an idea, all right. Rainbow Dash smirked, showing fangs. The Sonic Rainboom! Even Equestria stopped to gape at Rainbow Dash, 8 pairs of eyes wide at incredulity at the rainbow made Pegasus. What? Rainbow Dash, Twilight said with a shadow of pity. The first and last pony to produce a Sonic Rainboom was Daryl Firefly, and she died over 9 gross years ago. No pony has been able to break the Firefly barrier since, not even when accelerating with gravity. Well, records were made to be broken, right? Replied Rainbow Dash, while stretching her forelegs back and forth. Rainbow Dash, Moondancer cut in. You don't realize that many ponies have been hurt or even killed trying to fly that fast enough. Do you know what would happen when you fly that fast? Of course I know, Rainbow Dash snapped. What, you think I'm just some dumb jock? When I fly really fast, I leave all the color in the world behind. All I see is everything gray in front of me and black everywhere else. She looked down at Fluttershy, her expression softening. It's 'cause I'm zoning out. All my blood rushing back to my legs. And if I don't breathe right, or make a bad flap... Oh, Rainbow Dash shuddered. I've never passed out in flight before, but I know all the stories. All the Pegasi, and even some Griffins there who tried, passed out mid-flight and ended up breaking every bone in their body and surviving if they were lucky. You think I didn't try to wrap my head around everything there is to know about the Sonic Rainboom? Do you guys realize how many books that I had to read to find out about it? I think I can imagine, replied Twilight. It's a well-studied phenomenon against all Famaruchas around the world. Rainbow Dash. There have been many claims over the centuries by ponies who claim to have done it, but their claims could never be proven. Yeah? Well, I've done it once, Rainbow Dash said pompously, thumbing a hoof to her chest. Her boast did not receive the response she expected. Most every pony around her shook her head or scoffed, Equestria choosing to look further ahead to the tree barrier. Rainbow Dash. No pony's done a Sonic Rainboom in almost a mega gross years, Twilight pressed sternly. But I did! I swear! Rainbow Dash actually sounded anxious now, almost panicking. I was a little filly, about 10, and I was in a race, and I really needed to get flying fast, and then, bam! It happened! Where did this happen exactly? Cloudsdale, where Flutters and me grew up. I think I read a thesis on that once. It happened the day I became Queen Celestia's pupil. Professor Inkwell was quite thorough in her analysis of the incident. And what did the thesis say? Rainbow Dash sounded hopeful. Inconclusive. The incident had no reliable witnesses, and most ponies just say it could just well have been a stray crack of thunder. What? Rainbow Dash looked crestfallen. Inconclusive? But I did do it! I really did do it! Twilight approached the sullen Pegasus slowly, a sad but firm expression on her face. Rainbow Dash, you aren't a little filly anymore. You can't let your imagination run away with you. You have to grow up. But she did do it! All eyes turned to face Fluttershy, who had an uncommonly steady demeanor about her. Rainbow Dash did it for me. She was facing some bullies to convince them to leave me alone for being a wimpy, worthless, gangly little... Fluttershy, Twilight said sadly. I know that you love Rainbow Dash, but you're letting your adoration of her cloud your memories. Rainbow Dash can't have produced a Sonic Rainboom. Scientists just don't see the Cloudsdale Bang that way. But really, Twilight... Fluttershy, please. Twilight felt her voice cracking in pain. Just move on from the past. It's better that way. The two Pegasi huddled together, their ears lying flat against their heads as they nuzzled each other morosely. It broke Twilight's heart to pull down Rainbow Dash's pedestal and Fluttershy's, and in Rainbow's own mind. But It would be better for them in the end to not chase rainbows. Igazuchi awkwardly cleared his throat.
Perhaps we are continuing to exit,
he asked, with a thumb pointing over his shoulder at the barrier of trees. Yeah, sure, replied Rainbow Dash in monotone, her eyes heavy-lidded and wingtips limp against the ground. Igazuchi nodded hesitantly.
All right, we go.
The remainder of the journey to the exit of Labyrinth proceeded quickly and silently. What supposed to be a triumphant return now felt more like a private funeral. Twilight felt something horrible rising in her heart when she saw how crushed Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy were. Twilight knew all too well what it was like to view one childhood with rose-tinted glasses. She turned to Applejack. AJ, you don't think I went too far, do you? Applejack looked ambivalent. Don't rattle no, sugar. I ain't never been one to see Rainbow Dash line. Seems more to sort of tell you the problem straight, even if you're the one that's the problem. And she might be a boaster and a bragger, but she put her bits where her mouth is. When she boasts and brags, she means it, but I find the Sonic Rainboom a bit hard to swallow, even for Rainbow Dash. Thank you, AJ, Twilight said, with a faint smile, which quickly dissipated as soon as she returned her gaze to Rainbow Dash's back. I still feel completely rotten, though. You had to grow up fast without your folks, Twilight. I know how that feels. Kinda takes the color out of the world. But you gotta show the world that you can take it. Chew it up and spit it back. Just give them a bit of time. They got each other to prop themselves up. Twilight nodded slowly. I hope you're right. Twilight Sparkle was somewhat relieved when their band reached the barrier of trees at the end of the hallway of hedges, and Ixusi turned to face the seven mares and Drake, resting his right hand against a tree.
This is the way from the Minotaur city-states back into Equestria,
he said slowly.
I will now speak special Minotaur words to these trees, allowing you to pass.
Cupping his left hand around his muzzle, Ixusi murmured something to the trees, which Twilight and her band could not make out. Some magic dancing around Ikazuchi's right fingertips, the color which they could not give a name to. Twilight's eyes dazzled as she saw the trees at the edges of drawing back their branches upwards, and pulling their words inwards, while the trees in the middle bent creaking backwards out of the labyrinth, all trees leaving a clear path out of the Minotaur city-state. Minotaur magic, Twilight thought in awe. Are the trees all right? Applejack asked nervously.
There is no pain for trees,
explained Ixusi.
These trees have grown at Labyrinth for so long that Minotaurs can speak to them, and the trees understand the words of Minotaurs. Now, the trees will allow you to pass. You are welcome anywhere a Minotaur calls home. Farewell, and best of luck.
With similar valedictions from Twilight and her party, they passed over the arched tree trunks, past the bustles of trees' leafy branches, and into the chilled air of Equestria. There was something frosty around their hooves. Twilight looked down and blinked. Snow. Where going? It is cold! Brr. Applejack shivered slightly. Boy, you said it! Piggy piped in, hopping up into the air and flailing her legs about in midair, maintaining airtime for a few seconds before touching down once more and immediately leaping up again. This simply won't do! Verity cried, dizzy from hoof to hoof in alarm. Why in Equestria is there snow in Equestria? It can't be snowfall yet! It's because of a nighttime eternal, Moon Dancer replied, her tail swishing away the snow behind her. The growing cold has led to frozen precipitation. No downpour of rain happens anymore. There is only snow and hail anymore in Equestria. Twilight almost felt the tip of her tail starting to frost over in the snow at her hooves. She flicked it quickly back and forth, knocking some snow in the way. So, any idea where we are, Twilight? Applejack asked. Well, I know that Labyrinth is on a plateau above the hayseed swamps south of Horseshoe Bay, across from Baltimore, so it stands to reason that's where we are. If you don't mind, I could have told them just as easily coming this way myself, said Moon Dancer shortly. Oh, Twilight chuckled nervously. Right, I'm sorry. So, now what do we do? Asked Rainbow Dash. She did not look terribly sullen anymore, only rather sour. Fluttershy at her side did not seem particularly downbeat either, though she was perhaps more reticent than usual. Twilight replied, "We stay out of sight from major cities. Nightmare Moon has to have locked them down while we're away. Just because the radio doesn't say it, doesn't mean we have an excuse to get lazy. In the meantime, we figure out what will activate our last two elements, figure out who holds which of the elements, and then work out what brings out magic." "Are you sure that's wise, Twilight Sparkle?" Moondancer asked with a raised hoof. "The ponies of Equestria need to know some ponies got their back. They need to know that their hero has returned." "I'm no hero," Twilight returned darkly. "I just happened to know about Nightmare Moon's return a few hours in advance, and had a good idea what magical artifacts could defeat her, and where to find them." "If I was a hero," Twilight looked down at her host. "If I was a hero, you would be doing all you can to save the day?" She shook her head vigorously, before facing Moondancer with resolve. "We can't make a move too hastily, Moondancer. We just got lucky to get out of every scrape that we've been a part of. With the Bulgarian Ponyville, with the Hemalope back in the White Plains, with all the creatures of Everfree, and in Canterlot with Crescent Rose—" "Wait!" Moondancer stated, her eyes widening slightly. "You knew Crescent? You met her?" "That was weeks ago, Moondancer. She helped us sneak into Canterlot and—" Moondancer's brows knitted in worry. "What happened to her?" Twilight couldn't meet Moondancer's eyes. "Nightmare Moon unmade her." Moondancer's pupils shrank, her jaw falling open. "Cressy, she's gone?" Twilight nodded darkly. We didn't know her long, but she tried to fight off Nightmare Moon for us, when she could have escaped for us. She always did try to bite off more than she could chew," Moondancer said with a sad, rueful tone. "I first met Cressy at one of Mother's social parties. Her and my big sister were already close friends, especially on the subject of cookies. And when Cressy proved to be as able a cookie maker as my big sister, well, she just had to be a part of my parties." Moondancer's eyes seemed to quiver as tears built up, but refused to fall. "No, I'll never talk to her again. Never see her again. Never eat another plate of her chocolate chip cookies again." Twilight wrapped an arm around Moondancer's shoulders. 2 months ago, she would have scoffed at the idea of consoling a known social climber. But now, her heart was larger and warmer than it had been in years, and it ached to see some ponies so hurt. "I'm sorry, Moondancer. We wish we could have done something to save her." "No. Thank you for telling me. I didn't know. I didn't know." Twilight and Moondancer shared sad smiles, tears on the latter's face. "Well," Piggy piped in, popping up in between Twilight and Moondancer, "if you're ever in need of a chipper chuck wagon full of chocolate chip cookies, just put in an order with Sugar Cube Corner, and Piggy a Dining and Pie will be on the case." Moondancer offered her short, sad chuckle. "I'll think about it." Rainbow Dash interjected, "So, are we going to find someplace warm to stay for tonight? I mean, we did kind of pass up warm shelter back there." She pointed back toward the labyrinth, not even 10 paces away still, where the trees had long since brought themselves back to their erect state, blocking off the path into the Minotaur city-state once more. "Good point, Rainbow Dash," Twilight replied. "We can't sleep on their doorstep either. What if someone else wants to go in or out of the labyrinth? No. We need to make our way along this plateau for a fair fit. Find some outcropping of some sort to make camp under." "Or—" Moondancer's horn danced with her swimmer's light, a knowing smirk on her face. Twilight gave an unsteady chuckle once more. "Or we could create a field of springtime warmth around us. That could work too. Though we might want to wait a little before we do so. A trail of melted snow might be a bit of a giveaway for any shadow bolts playing recon." It was bitter work, trudging through the snow in what had to be the beginning of Platinum, the 9th month of the year. It was ordinarily not even autumn yet, and the seasons had always been exceedingly constant with ponies maintaining the weather and climate themselves. You know, Alicorn mused aloud, if I got the days right, I'll reckon today's the day to run the leaves. The running of the leaves? Moondancer asked quizzically. It's the 4th day of the month of Platinum. It's the day before autumn, when all Earth ponies all over Equestria charge the big races around the kingdom, using their Earth pony magic to knock loose all the leaves on all the trees everywhere. Moondancer arched a pink eyebrow. It sounds dreadfully complicated. Back in Canterlot, we unicorns just use magic to prune the trees. I don't know. Their method sounds awfully fascinating to me. Twilight responded kindly. I think I'd like to try it out. Oh, thanks, Twilight. But I don't know if a unicorn will be able to do very much in the running of the leaves. Just because I can't do much doesn't mean I can't participate if I don't want to. Twilight replied with a challenging smirk. It doesn't matter what I can do, just that I tried. That's the spirit! Pinky squeaked. Hey, after every pony's all rested up and stuffsies, why don't we have ourselves our Pinky being Pinky? Reaching a spot a good 3 gross paces down the plateau from the hedge maze that was Labyrinth, Moondancer erected her shield spell as Twilight set up a simple springtime area spell that fit neatly within Moondancer's shield. The snow quickly melted away, revealing patches of dribbled, dead grass spread across the dark soil. The pen pawed tentatively at the ground, attempting to feel out if it would be worth it to lay down on the ground. As a group, they decided to sleep standing up, as the soil was hard and unkind, setting down their shadow cells and removing their cloaks in the warmth of the shield. Each bear locked their knees in preparation for sleep. I never did quite understand where this came from, Moondancer commented, indicating the stiffness of her legs. I quite agree, Moondancer, Verity added. It's rather unladylike. Well, it's an evolutionary holdover from when ponies were more nomadic than they are today, Twilight Sparkle explained. A long time ago, when a pony had no place to call home, she would be doomed if she was found by a carnivore after falling asleep in the wilderness. So, ponies evolved so they simply rotate their patellas in order to remain upright and erect with little energy expenditure, allowing for a pony to fall asleep standing up. And what evolutionary purpose could that possibly serve? Rainbow Dash asked. Twilight thought for a moment to formulate a proper response, and so used an analogy she had learned when she was still a greenhorn on the subject. If 2 ponies were found by a carnivore while asleep, which do you think would survive? The one who's standing up, or the one who's lying down? Rainbow Dash opened her mouth to continue the discussion, before shrugging as best she could with locked knees. Touché! The cerulean Pegasus then leaned her head against Fluttershy's, eyes drifting shut. Twilight felt her eyelids growing heavy, and bowed her head as she drifted off into sleep. Twilight's sleep was unsettled by disturbing visions of her parents as half-vegetable creatures, of nightmarish giraffes who turned zebras inside out and wore them as cloaks, of the Kraken rising up from the prehistoric ocean and crushing the coastal cities under its weight, of nameless things crawling out from Tartarus and swarming out over Equestria under the mad rule of Nightmare Moon. So it was with great relief that Twilight's eyes blinked open to find herself back on the plateau near Labyrinth. She rotated a patella back into place to rub the sleepiness out of her eyes and to shield her eyes from the sun's rays. Wait, Twilight blinked. The sun? But that couldn't be right. The sun was supposed to be... As if in answer to Twilight's uneasiness, the sun began to fall out of the sky, the blue day sky shifting from blue to red as the celestial body fell upon the land of Equestria, and all that Twilight could see was the color of blood. The sun's nuclear flames spread out as quickly as though through every corner of the kingdom, and the screams of great rows of ponies and donkeys and mules and such all reached Twilight's ears at once. Twilight's heart filled with a black panic. She looked about for her friends, for Moondancer, for Spike, but she was alone on the plateau, alone with the Inferno. Her heart racing, Twilight tried to swivel her remaining 3 patellas back into position so she could bolt, but it was as if her legs had turned to steel. It's not so terrible, my little pony. Twilight felt something in her throat as she turned to face her addresser. It was Nightmare Moon, as she had appeared at the very beginning of Endless Night. But by the light of the fallen sun, she appeared to be completely crimson, her miasmic mane seeming to flow with the glow of dying red giants. Blood-red eyes shone with malice as the dreaded Alicorn lowered her head to Twilight's level, razor teeth bared in a monstrous grin. Is it not dreadful, Twilight Sparkle? A world completely consumed in sunlight! Your wretched Celestia had your way. We would all drown in daylight. She only continued to move my moon through the aether out of mockery for me, to show that my night is as paltry as her day, for I am your liberator from the night. So cease your struggle, just lay back, and let the darkness embrace you. The moon wears many faces, but as long as she has discarded the face of mercy! Twilight tried to reply, but her throat was paralyzed either by fear or some magic of the nightmare. Overhead, the moon shone red, looming far closer than it ever had before, as it pivoted from its light face to dark face. The emptiness behind the moon shimmered with terrible lights, the lights of which Twilight could not imagine, as though some horrific, chaotic battle between the forces she could not comprehend was unfolding. Still, the moon was growing closer, burning as though itself were on fire. I know where you are. Twilight instinctively bucked upon awaking, her patellas painfully switching back to their natural positions, so she fell back onto her belly as her front legs gave out on her. Twilight heard a small voice crying out beneath her, and realized she was lying on something tiny, hard, and scaly. She had fallen on top of Spike, who had definitely curled up beneath her when he had gone to sleep. Are you all right, Spike? Twilight asked worried, staggering to her hooves. Spike grumpily rubbed his eyes. Ugh, there's gotta be an easier way to wake me up, Mom. I was having a great ice cream dream. Well, at least one of us had a good dream, interjected Rainbow Dash, who looked rather indignant. And could you watch where you're bucking, Twilight? You almost slugged me! Sorry, Twilight said breathlessly. Bad dream. You're not the only one, said Applejack with a solemn expression. I reckon the Nightmare Moon don't take too kindly to all of us just suddenly popping back into Equestria. Just look at the state we're all in now. Twilight and Spike followed Applejack's hoof to look at the rest of their troop. Rarity was shakily stroking her own mane, her mouth taut and quavering, and her ears flat. Fluttershy was bawling inconsolably, with Rainbow Dash attempting to comfort her. Moon Dancer was just lying on the ground, shivering and almost comatose. Of all of them, Pinky seemed to be completely unaffected, plonking around from pony to pony, attempting to cheer them up. Oh, come on, Rarity! Remember the joke about the garden in the Azure? It's a real eye-turner. And Fluttershy, you gotta remember the joke about the badger in the river. The bit with the dog just kills me! Rainbow Dash, I know you're trying to be tough, but smile and laugh! I got a joke about a rain cloud and a stick of dynamite! No. Okay, Applejack, wait till you hear my joke about the really hungry caterpillar. You can really sink your teeth into it. Not now, Pinky, Applejack said patiently. We gotta see about sorting out Moon Dancer first and foremost. She looks like to be the most unsettled out of all of us. While Spike scampered off to console Rarity, Twilight knelt down next to Moon Dancer, who was on her side, shivering as though she had just come out of an icebox. Her pupils were constricted, and she did not notice Twilight sitting right in front of her. What nightmare could possibly rattled Moon Dancer so badly? Moon Dancer, it's me, Twilight Sparkle. I don't know if you can hear me talking to you right now, but you can't let Nightmare Moon beat you. She doesn't want us to beat her. That's what all these nightmares are about. She wants us to tire us out by attempting to be afraid of sleep. It will be easier to catch. What you dreamt out might have been scary, but the real nightmare is letting her win. Because if Nightmare Moon wins, if the miasma wins, we all die. If nothing else, you have all of us here with you, Moon Dancer. We don't want to see you so sad and spooked like this. What happened to the Moon Dancer who wouldn't rest until she got my half-baked promise to show up at her next party? The Moon Dancer who tried sending me a teddy bear in the hopes of roping me into her summer sun celebration party? The Moon Dancer who showed up out of the blue at Ponyville to show me the way back to Equestria? Moon Dancer's shivering slowly ceased. Her pupils dilated as she focused up at Twilight and smiled faintly. Twilight? Twilight smiled back. Still feel like talking about it? Sitting up, Moondancer's ears fell back as he avoided Twilight's gaze. I'd rather not. Whatever makes you comfortable right now is important, Moondancer. We've all been through the ringer because of Nightmare Moon, but you seem to be more affected. If there's anything I could get you... No thank you, Twilight Sparkle, replied Moondancer with a slightly shaky hoof. I'm just glad you stopped me out of that. I almost thought I was overcome with the vapors. She finished that last sentence with an exaggerated old-world accent, eliciting a laugh between the two candlelight unicorns. Twilight looked around with a hopeful smile on her face. Fluttershy was wiping one of her eyes clear of tears with feathery fetlocks, and a faintly smiling Rainbow Dash had a wing around her shoulder. Piggy was leaping about through the air, somehow spontaneously generating confetti as she did so. Applejack whipped her ponytailed mane back and forth slightly, a green eye shining at Rarity, who was attempting to curl back her mane into shape, and Spike holding out a gentle claw and wearing a gentle smile. A thought occurred to Twilight. Wait a minute. Why was Spike the only one who wasn't given a nightmare by Nightmare Moon? 7 pairs of eyes locked onto the mulberry drake, who looked about with uncertainty at each of the mares staring at him. Isn't he a dragon? Twilight prepared to open her mouth to chastise the cerulean Pegasus for giving her lip, but then hesitated, giving thought to Rainbow Dash's observation. It was true that dragons were exceptionally resistant to magic, and even though Nightmare Moon was at a level of musical power only matched by Queen Celestia herself, it was entirely likely that Spike's inherent magical immunity as a dragon meant that he was more or less immune to Nightmare Moon's capabilities as a Dreamweaver. You know what? I think you're onto something there, Rainbow Dash, Twilight said with a slight smirk. Dragons are all descended from Tiamat, the Dragon Queen, and she herself is extremely resistant to magical attack. And since Spike is a dragon, blood to Tiamat, he's not affected by Nightmare Moon's nightmare magic! Rainbow Dash piped in gladly. I always knew that dragons were awesome! I mean, not as awesome as me, but come on! Dragons breathe fire! How's that not awesome? Dragons just don't breathe fire, you know, Rainbow. Applejack interjected. I heard a tale from my pa way back when of a dragon shooting lightning out of his mouth. That's right, Twilight smiled. Dragons who breathe fire are simply the most common. Not only are there dragons who breathe lightning, but there are also who breathe ice, acid, and poison gas. And which type does Spike breathe, Twilight? Fluttershy asked. Twilight blinked, looking down at Spike, who looked back at her. He coughed slightly into a claw, small fires of green flares firing out across his palm. It looks like fire, Twilight said, but I've been on the brunt of some of Spike's sneezes when he got the dragon fruit, and it's not hot at all, so I really don't know. Plus, Spike's breath can teleport my messages to Queen Celestia. I think that Celestia keeps a source of Spike's fire in her study, so she can receive my messages and give me messages through Spike. So, Spike's magic is an aberration among dragons? Moondancer queried. It's not an aberration, Twilight snapped. This means he's special. Hey, speaking of special, cut in Rainbow Dash with a sly grin. How's about that Minotaur guy talking to those trees? This is some pretty cookie stuff. The sort of thing I expect out of AJ here. Hi! Snarled Applejack. That was just the one time! And Bloomberg had powdery mildew. He needed the encouragement to get better! Rainbow Dash started to snicker. Wait a second. You named a tree after your little sister? I knew that you were all about your little sister, but I didn't think you were that bad for her! If you don't mind, Verity interjected, stomping her hoof irritably. It is not untoward for an elder sister to pay homage to her elder younger kin. I have apprehended my own name of Rarity with my sister's name of Belle after earning my cutie mark. Rainbow Dash scoffed. That's cute of you two, but I'm really too awesome to be slowed down by some bratty little kid. You foul hypocrite! Shouted Rarity. What about that raggedy little scamp with the Scooter who shadows around you day and night? Oh, you mean Scooter? That little squirt's awesome. You haven't seen the moves he pulls on that little wheelie of hers. She's been tearing up Ponyville streets for as long as I've known her. Then you shall understand how idealization is not a one-way street between siblings. Even if it's not blood, you should wish to do as good for her as she has done for you. I would, but Skids has been holding out on me with her flying moves. She's got some sick flying moves. I can tell just by looking at her. For Celestia's sake, is that all there is to you, Doss? Flying? In case you haven't noticed, me and Fluttershy have been engaged just after our little trip into the Everfree. Flying isn't all there is to Rainbow Dash. Maybe not, but it is still 4 parts out of 5. Hey, even your desire to break the Firefly barrier and produce a Sonic Rainboom is rooted in your obsession with your inborn ability to fly. Oh, now you're the one nagging on me about the Rainboom? I don't care what you have to say, or any pony has to say. I did it, and I know it. You can't prove that I didn't, Twilight! Twilight was startled at being addressed so abruptly, but with a whip of her tail, she furrowed her eyebrows at Rainbow Dash and shouted back. Fine! If you want to believe it, but don't expect me to back you up on it, even if you are my friend! Something very wet and very cold suddenly struck Twilight on the side of the head. Rainbow Dash and Applejack started to snicker at Twilight and Spike. Fluttershy, Moondancer, and Rarity attempted to withhold similar laughs. The cold and wet spot didn't hurt, but Twilight reached up and touched it regardless. She looked at her hoof. Snow. Turning in the direction that snow came from, Twilight saw Pinkie Pie outside the warm barrier, sitting next to a pile of snowballs and grinning broadly. Come on, every pony! And Spike, let's not all get hot and bothered right now. We got winter all around us, and we haven't even had a summer wrap-up! Let's have a snowball fight and a running in the snow and have a good old time! The 6 other mares in the group, along with Spike, looked back and forth at each other awkwardly. The tension had been flaring terribly, until Pinkie Pie's abrupt snowball snipe at Twilight, and now the general mood seemed to be lighter and more geared toward the sort of joyous activity that Pinkie had in mind. The first to return fire against Pinkie Pie was Rainbow Dash, who balanced a half-dozen other snowballs on each wing. Then a snowball from Applejack struck Rainbow Dash, and Spike hit the Ponyville Earth Pony with a snowball of his own making. And very soon, everyone had either begun to roll out snowballs of their own, or throw it in their own special ways. I'm not going to join in, said Moondancer aloofly, digging a hoof into the ground slowly. She was the only one still under the dome of warmth. It's not Papa, and Mother never raised my sisters, brothers, and I to engage in this activity. A snowball struck her in the snout, and Rarity levitated a number of snowballs in front of her. Oh, it's the swatter, and we've already run ragged enough. Rarity grinned, with a rather un-Rarity-like grin. Moondancer blinked, then smirked as she used her Twimmer Shimmer to draw snowballs up from the snow around Rarity, who blinked in astonishment. The tide shall turn, my dear Rarity, hissed Moondancer. Very soon, the 8 of them were wholly embroiled in a snowball fight, complete with trenches supplied by Applejack's apt uses of Earth Pony magic. The snowball fight quickly shifted in sides, with some ponies like Pinkie Pie swapping allegiances almost as frequently as taking a breath. The air was filled with grunts of efforts as ponies hurled snowballs through the air, and shouts of laughter and cries of surprise as targets were struck. Each snowball hit its mark. A little bit of the tension started to ebb away, replaced with a heating feeling of release. A slight flurry led to demilitarization on all sides. Smiles turned upwards toward the snowflakes, falling down toward their bright faces. Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy floated up in the air, spiraling around each other as the snow settled into their respective manes. They smiled deeply into each other's eyes. This snowfall in Platinum, Moondancer said softly, would not have been possible without Nightmare Moon. She may be terrible, but this snow is for us, and it's beautiful. Twilight could not help but finding herself in agreement with Moondancer. The snowfall could not help that it was begun by a monstrous miasmic abomination preferring the night-based special talent of the Alicorn Queen of Night. It was not something to be resented and rejected, but to be enjoyed while it could be. Looking out from Labyrinth, Twilight appreciated the sheer height of the plateau for the first time. They had to be at least as high as Cloudsdale from the Hazy Swamps, so they would need to take care as to not take a false step or draw too close to the edge, in case a sheet of ice under the snow caught some pony off guard. beyond the hazy swamps. Twilight could make out the glimmer of Horseshoe Bay, and the glistening lights of Baltimore beyond that. Girls, Twilight began, let's take 5 under the shield for a while. The snow will keep us out of visibility for a while, and we won't be able to progress until it's lifted. Why don't we just wink out somewhere else already? Rainbow Dash asked, with a degree of impatience. Nightmare Moon's already placed anti-winking wards over Equestria, remember? Twilight explained. We can't bank on her having only placed macro wards over Equestria to prevent any pony from winking in or out of the country. We have to assume that any act of winking in or out will trigger some sort of alarm in Endymion, or be blocked entirely and trigger an alarm. You're just being paranoid, T.S., replied Rainbow Dash, with a lackadaisical flip of a hoof. Maybe, but sometimes it's best to be expected anything, Applejack cut in. I don't rightly know much about this whole winking business, but I trust Twilight to know what's to be done and what's not to be. I very much concur with Applejack, added Rarity, though I'm not so magically powerful that I can wrap my mind around the idea of winking out myself. I am glad to be friends with some pony who is much more savvy about circumstances than I could ever be. I think that you have a good idea of what Nightmare Moon is planning, Twilight, Fluttershy breathed. You've done really good at leading us this far. Rainbow Dash nodded. You've been pretty cool. Twilight smiled. Thank you, Rainbow Dash. The Cerulean Pegasus scratched the back of her neck. I still think I'm right, though. I know that I pulled out the Sonic Rainboom that day. Twilight gave a slow nod. Okay, let's just agree to disagree on the matter then. No bad blood between friends, alright? Rainbow Dash beamed. Gotcha! Then promptly frowned. But it still beats me why I can't get going so fast anymore. I mean, I was practicing all day before the summer sun celebration to see if I could pull one off with the sunrise, but I couldn't do it! She gave a frustrated growl. Fluttershy warmed her hoof around Rainbow, smiling, as she said, I believe in you, Dashie. I know you could do it one day. Rainbow Dash smiled at her significant other. At least I have you to help me cool down. I guess every pony, even me, needs a little bit of stress relief. I'll tell you what, this adventure's been way too hardcore so far. Yeah, Bertie, it sure was, Pinky squealed, bouncing off of Moondancer's head. I mean, traveling with you, Twilight, probably wasn't as fun as it could have been, but we've been to all sorts of places all over the world that we haven't seen hide nor hair of Pinky and her own special brand of laughter and joy. I just wish we could have stayed longer so that way we could have gotten those zebras and giraffes laughing with each other. We've had no other recourse, Pie, grumbled Moondancer, rubbing the pole of her neck. If you really want to defeat Nightmare Moon, you're going to have to pick up the pace. Well, not even the home stretch, I'll have you know. Oh, yeah? Spike replied with a ball of claw. Well, Nightmare Moon's got another thing coming, and she thinks that my mom can't take her down. Twilight chuckled, with a hoof over her muzzle. While she doubted that Spike's avouchment would hold much sway against the miasmic Queen of the Night, it filled her with courage as she associated with hard cider. And that's because no pony messes with your mom, she said as she drew Spike in with one foreleg and began to fiercely work the other forehoof against the crown of his head. Spike flailed his little arms in feeble protest, trying to fight off the noogie. Aw, no fair, Mom! I can't reach! Okay, was that a Lion King reference? Was that a direct reference to the Lion King? Because if so, this Victus went 2 points up on my radar. And considering the fact that it was already batting 100, means that it's now 102. Laughter spread around the circle of mares in the warm dome. Well, it appears that my little Spiky Poo has met his match, Rarity cooed. Slowly, her facial features shifted from full-like joy to somberness. Though I do agree with Moondancer. This eternal night is such absolute murder on one's complexion. We may finish this with all the speed of a Sonic Rainboom. The words were out of Rarity's mouth before she could stop herself. And though she covered her muzzle with her forehoofs, the damage had already been done. Rainbow Dash's ears twitched madly as she snorted irritably at Rarity. Oh, so we're back at this again, are we? Rainbow Dash's wings flared. And just when things were getting good again, you had to make a dig! But, Rainbow Dash, I didn't mean... Verity stammered. It's just slipped out! Yeah, but you were thinking it, weren't you? Leave it to the drama queen to dig up all problems! I beg your pardon! I only happen to raise issues that I believe to be relevant to our present circumstances. Oh, really? Rainbow Dash flicked her mane in a manner uncannily like Rarity's. It began to affect an exaggeratedly effeminate accent that only vaguely called to mind the alabaster unicorn of their band. Oh, look at me, everybody! I'm Rarity, the most melodramatic man in all of Equestria, who always dresses in style. I'm absolutely terrified of any pony seeing my bread mane. I simply must manicure my horse every dozen minutes. I shave every 2 hours so that no pony knows that I grow fainting hair. I have a fainting couch. Rarity's eyes narrowed in rage, her lips scrunching up. Then she shifted to her hind legs, practically pirouetting out the shield of warmth into the flurrying snow with a distinctly more Rainbow Dash-like expression on her face. She made many dramatic flourishing movements as she called out an uncanny impression of the cerulean Pegasus' scratchy brass tones. Oh, look at me, every pony! I am Rainbow Dash, totally obsessed with flying, even though that's what every Pegasus can do. But, in spite of this, I'm totally awesome, which is a word that only means anything to me. I am engaged to be married, but my fiancé comes second to my flying. I barely acknowledge the little filly with no family to call her own as my own sister, because I only want to move some sweet flying moves off of... Ah! And then Rarity disappeared, her Rainbow Dash trailing off into a scream of shock. In the eternal instant after the alabaster unicorn fell out of sight, Twilight realized with horror that Rarity had been spinning and darting closer and closer toward the edge of the plateau as she became more energetic in her imitation of Rainbow Dash. Rarity! Every pony cried, dashing toward the edge of the plateau and peering over. Already Rarity was so far down, lucky not to dash her body against the rocks jutting out on the way down into the marshy swamps. Rarity! No! Sobbed Spike, reaching a claw down importantly. A rainbow flash of light darted past him, turning down at a hairpin and beelining straight for the plummeting Rarity. The crack of a sonic boom reporting up to them from the trail of rainbow light. Time slowed down, but Twilight's eyes still struggled to remain trained on the dourly accelerating Rainbow Dash. Calculations ran through Twilight's mind faster than light, as he quivered at the realization. Rainbow Dash was not going to make it. Even factoring gravity as an accelerant, she would not be fast enough to catch Rarity before she hit the swamps. Down below, Rainbow Dash's mind was clearer than it had been in ages. After realizing how dear Fluttershy was to her, after the near misses she had been subjected to in Everfree Forest, she let the yellow Pegasus know, and subsequently found herself being proposed to by the timid mare. As irritating as her resistance could be, Rainbow Dash would not trade her for the world. And now, because of her own inflexibility, a friend of hers was falling to death. There was only one thing for her. Saving her! Physics and gravity and all those other highfalutin concepts which Rainbow Dash only learned of in school and barely retained in all those books he read on the fast flyers meant nothing to the cerulean Pegasus now. Limits, laws, and can't do that did not even register in her mind. The world turned black around her, but it did not matter. All that mattered was saving Rarity. The insufferable alabaster unicorn may not have always seen eye to eye with Rainbow Dash on the best of days, but Rainbow would save Rarity's life any day, as she would with any friend. Twilight's eyes wandered. A cone of wind was growing narrower and narrower in front of Rainbow Dash. She was rapidly approaching the threshold, and then she would lose control and crash, and Twilight would lose 2 friends in one day. She wanted to look away, but her eyes remained glued to the descending Pegasus. And then there was a crack like thunder, and a flash of bright white light that splintered into every color there was. Boom! Every color that was given a name, and even every color that remained nameless. The wave of colors radiated out and splashed against the jagged boulders shaken loose by the boom, momentarily disrupting the spectrum of visible colors. The green swamps below shifting to yellow and blue, to orange and indigo, into red and purple. Then it was all over. Twilight's brain had gone blank. This was so far beyond anything she had hoped or even expected to see in her life. She had no way to articulate her shock and awe at what her friend Rainbow Dash had just performed. The others seated around her were similarly shell-shocked, staring agape down as the rainbow streak of magical light made contact with the falling alabaster dot, curved up and back toward them. All of them were stunned into silence. All except Fluttershy.
Yes! You did it, Dashie! You did it! I knew you could do it! I knew it! I knew it!
It was scary how much she sounded like Pinkie Pie when speaking above a loud whisper. The streak of rainbow light coalesced into Rainbow Dash carrying Rarity, both of them looking incredibly windswept. Rainbow Dash was actually breathing heavily. Twilight remembered how the clearing of Ponyville skies on the day she met had not even left the cerulean Pegasus winded. Rarity's mane and tail skirt stuck out and almost completely straight, and she was shaking worse than Moondancer was after her nightmare. But she was alive, and so was Rainbow Dash as he set the unicorn down beside the warm shield. You know, people, during that whole scene, during that whole awesome bit, I was playing Loyalty. Why? Because it's Rainbow Dash's image song. It always plays when she's about to do something awesome. You okay, Rares? Rainbow asked. Rarity took several deep breaths before replying in a hoarse voice that did not bother to carry a pastoral accent. Oh, yes, I'm all right. Thanks to you, Rainbow Dash. Rainbow Dash's eyebrows furrowed in concern. I'm sorry I made you lose your head like that. I really got over my head about the whole Sonic Rainboom thing.
No, Rainbow Dash. I'm the one who should be apologizing. I said the wrong thing when you were clearly still on edge about the subject. So, I'm sorry.
Rainbow Dash smirked. Now, I might not be awesome to pull off a Sonic Rainboom, but I'm not so as cool as to hold a grudge, so apology accepted, Rarity.
But you did do a Sonic Rainboom, Dashie.
Fluttershy floated over to Rainbow Dash with a soft smile on her face. Rainbow Dash shook her head with a sad smile at her fiancé. Come on, Fluttershy. You know that's just a hold of horse apples. I could pull off a Sonic Rainboom if I...
But you did, Rainbow Dash!
Twilight interjected, torn between disbelief and euphoria.
You surpassed the Firefly barrier for exactly 0.211 seconds! I don't believe it, Rainbow Dash, but you made a Sonic Rainboom!
Rainbow Dash looked at her formerly most fervent disbeliever in astonishment, her cerise eyes sparkling with disbelief. She tried to see if there was any sentiment of trickery in Twilight's eyes, as though she feared the lavender unicorn rearing up and tearing Pansy foal. But she saw none of this in Twilight's eyes, only a joyous relief at having been wrong. Cerulean Pegasus then shifted her eyes back to Fluttershy, who smiled slowly. I did a Sonic Rainboom? Rainbow Dash said hesitantly. Fluttershy nodded again, smiling more brightly.
You did a Sonic Rainboom.
Rainbow Dash's expression melted into one of sheer ecstasy, her smile stretching so wide that her head nearly split in half. It probably would have if she was Pinkie Pie. I did a Sonic Rainboom. Fluttershy took Rainbow's hooves in her own.
You did a Sonic Rainboom.
They took to the air, spiraling gaily around each other.
I did a Sonic Rainboom! You did a Sonic Rainboom!
They continued in this vein for over a minute, each so wrapped up in each other's joy that they nearly forgot the mission they had been partaking in for almost 2 months. At long last, Rainbow Dash had been able to repeat the stunt that had been the cause of no shortage of schoolyard bullies claiming that Rainbow Dash had in fact crashed that day, causing her eventual dropping out from flight school, and moving to Ponyville, where Fluttershy had already set up her own home away from the judgmental eyes of Cloudsdale. Now that Rainbow Dash had been able to repeat her breaking of the Firefly barrier, and with a scientifically minded pony present, she could let it be known that she had not been lying back at Cloudsdale. Think y'all could turn it down a bit, you two? Applejack quipped. I don't think some pony might have heard you back down in Baltimore. Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy startled, flushed sleeplessly, and descended into landing amongst their friends.
Well,
Moondancer said breathily,
I must say, I never thought I would see something like that in all my ears.
You make it sound like you're an old grey mare, Rarity responded. Which I can verily assure you that you are not.
It's just a sort of phrase we use in my family a lot.
I see. Rainbow Dash. Twilight approached slowly. I'm sorry I ever doubted you about the Sonic Rainboom. You could really do it. Rainbow Dash smirked hesitantly, before placing a hoof over her chest. Hey, didn't I say it before we met? I don't tell any pony something that ain't so. I'm also like that. But, I suppose, Twilight replied, but knowing that you've broken the Firefly barrier and produced the Sonic Rainboom, it stands to reason you've done it before. I'll get in touch with Professor Inkwell and let her know of this development as soon as possible. The Cloudsdale Bang must see a reopening in this investigation. But I don't get it, Rainbow Dash mused with knitted eyebrows. I've been trying for so many years to do the Rainboom again, and I couldn't do it, and now suddenly I can? What's up with that? What gets the Rainboom shows going?
I don't know.
Twilight quirked with a single amethyst eyebrow. But I have a theory. I believe, and this is all conjecture, mind you, that the reason you couldn't produce the Sonic Rainboom before was because you were only doing it for yourself. You said that you made your first Rainboom because of Fluttershy? Rainbow Dash nodded. Some bullies wouldn't leave her alone, so I challenged them to a race to defend her armor. If I won, they leave her alone, and, well, because of the Rainboom, I won, and got my cutie mark to boot. Rainbow looked proudly at the tricolored lightning bolt on her flank. Twilight beamed. And that supports my hypothesis. I postulate that the Sonic Rainboom can only perform for someone else's sake, not for one's own. You could do it for Fluttershy, and you could do it for Rarity. But, if I'm correct, you never could do it under any other circumstances because there wasn't a connection to any other pony. Twilight's eyes widened. Well, maybe Queen Celestia is right. Maybe the magic of friendship really is the greatest magic in the universe. Well, let's see. It's taken down gods, stopped an asteroid, taken down the most powerful Senshi of all time, and turned Goku into a god. Yeah, I think we got something here. Guys! Pinkie suddenly cried out. Her tail seemed to be quivering madly, and her face was stricken with alarm. My tail is twitching! My tail is twitching! So, Applejack responded, that's her Pinkie science! Twitching tail means something's gonna fall! And with that, Applejack and her fellow pony villagers huddled down onto their bellies, forelights clamped over their heads. Pinkie, having produced a rainbow umbrella hat from out of nowhere, and placed it on her head. Twilight cut spikes under her forehoofs, eyes turning toward the sky in fear. A single purple blare descended from the sky, lighting roughly in the center of the circle, kicking up dirt and grass to obscure it momentarily. When it cleared, there stood a Pegasus in a dark, deep purple flight suit, accented with dark gray around the hood and legs, a winged pony skill mark on the flight suit's flanks. Her rich blue mane was swept back as if by a cyclone, and her pale, bluish-gray muzzle was parted in a savage grin, revealing a vampire's fangs and a beast's razor-sharp teeth. Nightingale, captain of the Shadowbolts. Despite the shield of warmth around the group of 8, they felt like they had fallen into a pool inside a very large ice box. Well, hissed Nightingale. I was wondering about those Baltimore reports of a burst of rainbow light over the swamps. Looks like this is my lucky night. Each and every one of Endymion's most wanted, all in one spot. Twilight's heart stopped in her chest for a brief moment. In all the excitement of Rainbow Dash's performing a Sonic Rainboom and saving Rarity's life, they had not realized how much of a spectacle they had been making. Nightingale pushed her goggles up over her eyes. They were golden, slit-pupiled like a bat pony's, and narrowed at Moondancer in suspicion.
But you are not on the most wanted list. You're nothing. A shadow in the night.
Moon Dancer glowered at Nightingale.
But it would seem that this is your lucky night as well, the whole bunch of you. Except for the shadow.
She added to the Moon Dancer.
Queen Nightmare Moon has decided on a punishment suitable for your high treason.
And that will be, Applejack asked defiantly. Nightmare's grin, full of malice, broadened even further.
Public execution by guillotine. That way, every pony can see what happens to some pony who stands up to Nightmare Moon.
That sounds pretty plain for Nightmare Moon, remarked Rainbow Dash. Nightingale swept up to Rainbow Dash in a flash, trailing on Miasmic Mist as he did so.
You didn't let me finish, she snarled. The beautiful part is that Nightmare Moon will haunt each of you so that even when your heads have separated from your bodies, your heads will never die. You'll have to live with the pain of having no body for all eternity, no wings to fly, no hooves to buck with, no tail to swat away flies with, no cutie mark to mark your special talent in life. Your manes will be burnt away and your horns sawed off, so that way you will eternally shamed and humiliated for your goal. And to top it all off, your tongues will be cut out, and your lips sewn shut as well, so you will not be able to speak your alcoholic poison to any pony who gazes upon you.
The idea of such a grisly and torturous end, so gleefully detailed to them by a psychotic Pegasus, almost drove the band of ponies to bolting away, to try and get away from Nightingale.
Where's the rest of your Wonderbolt knockouts, huh?
Rainbow Dash interjected angrily.
They're too chicken to deal with us!
Nightingale's eyes flashed yellow.
They're spread thin, counteracting those broken down Wonderbolts and the reset Sunbolt magic. But one Shadowbolt is worth 10 Wonderbolts, so they will triumph over your banner bearers till the day.
So, how you plan on taking us in, huh? Applejack growled, scratching a hoof against the dry earth.
Yeah, 7 mares and a dragon against 1 psycho. We've got no chance,
snarled Rainbow Dash. Nightingale flapped to the air, forelegs whirring up as she bared her teeth once more.
There's the rub in substance. I'm not the one who's going to be rounding you up. Instead, you will see how this eternal night of the Queen of Air and Darkness has emboldened the creatures of darkness of your magical land of Equestria. You may have been lucky enough to invade a Himmelope, but more of its own kind, alongside vampires and werewolves, proud the queendom feeling, making sport of the lives of ponies. Spirits arise from the battlefields of old to terrorize the living. Cemeteries have unserved themselves as Nightmare Moon's eldritch magic brings corpses under their thrall as her puppet dead hordes. But you need not worry about them now. The one who will bring you into Nightmare Moon approaches, and she is the most apropos captor, considering the fate that awaits you. She has been the terror of forests across Equestria for centuries, galloping faster than any pony who has ever lived. She is as silent as the breath of the dead, and she knows neither day nor night. She has always been the greatest soldier of the night, apart from me, of course, and she is— Don't you ever shut up!
Applejack bellowed in interruption, spinning and thrusting both hind legs at Nightingale, dissipated into a miasmic mist the instant Applejack's hooves made contact, the sparkling cloud rising into the air and darting away to darkness.
What does she mean by that?
Fireside quivered, her cyan eyes darting this way and that.
She meant that she was picking a fight with the wrong mares,
Rainbow Dash growled in reply, shifting her way onto her own hind legs to prepare for a buck to end all bucks.
Wait, did you hear that?
Twilight shivered her ears around, trying to pick up on whatever it was that had caught Nightmare Moondancer's attention. Under the sound of Pinky wincing and grabbing one of her knees, which seemed to have gone stiff, Twilight heard what sounded like the soft pitter-patter of a foal's hooves. But even quieter, as though the foal were charging across the field of pillows and feathers. In the faint light of the moon and stars, Twilight caught some dark shape galloping toward them. It had to be what was making the galloping noises, but it seemed altogether too quiet for the size of the figure. Moondancer startled badly at the sight of the incoming figure.
It can't be.
Twilight faced her fellow Cantalonian in alarm. Wait, what can't be, Moondancer? But Moondancer lit up her Alicorn, and a pale blue Dwimmer shimmer, and vanished in a brilliant flash of pale blue light. She went down to Celestia knows where. Twilight barely had time to register Moondancer's cowardice and abandonment of them before her friends started to shriek in terror at the approach of the attacker. Pulling Spike onto her back with her Dwimmer shimmer, Twilight turned to face the opponent in defiance, and her jaw went agape. It was rearing up and kicking in a display of aggression. But even without that, it would have been taller and more slender than Nightmare Moon or even Queen Celestia. Its long leonine tail swished about slowly and ominously, the long skirt at the end of a gleaming royal purple, and seeming to weave in a wind that did not exist. Its bluish-black coat was uncannily smooth. Its cutie mark was obscured on both its flanks by clusters of crisscrossing scars, which produced smoke that glowed a bright pale blue. And it had no head. A dark black smoke emanated from its spine and trachea. It took shapeless forms of malice. Its neck turned down toward Twilight and Spike, and though it had no eyes, it was clear it was absorbing their terror at the realization that this specter of legend actually existed. That every fearful report of encounters with her, lost at night, in a foggy forest, was not thus the result of panic and misrepresentation of other beings. She was real. The Headless Horse!